Good evening, everybody. It's about 8:20 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on February 10th, 2016. I'm weather forecaster Eric Drewitz with your regional forecast. So, across central New York right now, we have temperatures in the middle and lower 20s with colder air, middle and upper teens to our west over western New York, and warmer air to our east with about a due westerly flow over the region. Looking at some current infrared satellite imagery, as you see, we have our little clipper system slowly making its way throughout the Great Lakes region, and it will lead to a lot colder temperatures, much colder temperatures for the next few days to come. So looking at some current radar imagery at this time, you see we have this really strong LAP type B or long lake axis parallel type B lake effect snow band over Lake Ontario, and long lake axis parallel means that the fetch or the way that the band is oriented over the lake is going from west to east, and it's long lake axis parallel because it's going over the long end of the lake. Now, these kind of lake effect snow bands are the kind that bring a lot of snow, very high snow accumulations, but to very localized areas, opposed to slap bands or short lake axis parallel, which are the kind, for example, off of Ontario that would blow from either north, most of the time north to south. Um, Now, looking at the band itself, it's been over Oswego, New York, which is about here on the map, and SUNY Oswego campuses as well. And we've been getting heavy lake effect snows for the past few hours, actually. And to look at some current data from the SUNY Oswego Chermax station, we have temperatures in the middle 20s, but the visibilities actually have been dropping down. The lowest visibilities, this 597 right here, this is 597 feet. So visibilities have been dropping below 600 feet in the heaviest in some of the heaviest bands of lake effect snow here. Looking at some current Lake Ontario water temperatures, so over the past winter, it's been very warm due to the El Nino and whatnot, other connections out there. But we're finally having the AO, as I said in my previous videos, the AO or the Arctic oscillations weakening, which will allow pulses of cold air to move southward, as well as the PNA is having a bit of a spike, which will allow higher than normal geopotential height anomalies over the eastern Pacific and western United States. But because of the lack of cold air present over the Great Lakes region this entire winter so far, lake temperatures are above normal. Last year, the lake was frozen over, almost out to the horizon. And now we're having lake temperatures in the 40s, so this warm pattern is definitely going to prolong the lake effect season. Looking at the current SPC mesoanalysis right here, we will first look at the where is it? Yeah, divergence and wind. So as you see, we have a very strong area of lower level convergence along the south side of Lake Ontario, and that's really helping this band develop and persist. Now, this convergence is really strong. It doesn't seem like due to this really strong convergence, I suspect that's one of the main reasons why this band has been holding in place for quite some time. So we have very strong lower level convergence, and then when we look at the 850 millibar analysis, we have very strong cold air advection as well. We have 850 millibar temperatures up here in Ontario province down to minus 26 Celsius, and we have our wind vectors, our wind barbs are pretty much perpendicular to the isotherms. So that indicates some very strong cold air advection, and we actually have an option. Let's look at the 850 millibar temperature advection. We have very strong cold advection over our area, with the strongest cold air advection in this. Sorry about that. In this area right here of the darker blues. So very strong cold air advection over the region is going to definitely help enhance the lake effect snow machine. The fact that the winds at 850 millibars are blowing pretty much parallel to the long axis to the lakeshore is supporting these long lake axis parallel bands. The difference between Type A and Type B is Type A, the bands would be more oriented into the Tug Hill and into areas like Jefferson County, but Type B bands hug the southern end of the lake, so areas like Oswego, Fulton, Syracuse, you usually would get some good snows off those LAP Type B bands. So looking at the current 500 millbar pattern at this time, you see we're in the middle. We're having a trough, an upper level trough built into our region, which is going to help cold air um, dominate the region over the next coming days. So moving into some of the modeling now. This is 500 millbar vorticity. I have the NAM, the North American model, and the GFS model up. Sadly, if you haven't watched any of my previous videos, I have to say I cannot show you any ECMWF data for legal reasons, unfortunately. But as you see, we have this trough remaining over our region, and it looks like we have another shot of cold air coming back in for the weekend as a second pulse of upper level energy brings a secondary trough back, and the Euro and GFS ensembles have been showing this. They've been showing a second pulse of even colder air coming into the region for this weekend. Now, taking a quick look at your 850 millbar temperatures, we have some really cold air that'll be affecting into our region. We have areas. We have areas of minus 25, minus 30, even reaching the United States. This time, this is 0Z on Sunday, or this is 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Saturday evening. We have minus 850 millibar temperatures lower than minus 30 Celsius over central New York at this time, according to the NAM model. And that's some of the coldest air we've ever seen. Even in some of our coldest outbreaks during the cold Arctic outbreak of February 2015, a year ago, I'm sure you guys will all remember that. We have not seen in that outbreak 850 millibar temperatures lower than minus 30. So this is very significant. Big upper level trough will be building into our region, causing these very cold temperatures. Just taking a quick look at the surface temperatures because I'm curious to see what. But yeah, very cold air is in store for the region. Pulses of highs this weekend I think will be in the single digits, with overnight lows below zero. And again, to show you with the GFS model right here, we have that second trough coming through with continuous pulses of upper level energy. So I think that's going to help keep the LakeEffect snow machine kicked up and active into the weekend. So looking at the 850 millibar temperatures with GFS, it looks consistent with cold temperatures across the region, and actually, yes, minus 30s are present as well over central New York and northern New York. So for 0Z Sunday, so models are consistent. Minus 30, 850 millibar temperatures very cold. Highs this weekend will be in the lower single digits. With overnight lows below zero, especially in remote locations. So that is something to keep in mind if you need to stay safe from the cold. So now we're going to look at real quick the surface to 850 millibar lapse rate, because the surface to 850 millibars is usually where you want a very strong, a very high lapse rate for LakeEffect snow over the lake. Excuse me. So during this time, we have consistent, strong, unstable lapse rates over the lake. So this is going to help the environment produce LakeEffect snow into the weekend. Now we're going to take a look at some soundings here on BuffKit. I'm going to bring up the RAP initial analysis over LO1, which is over the lake right here. And as you see, we have a nice thick dendritic growth zone of at least 100 millibars or so. We have our capping stable layer at about just pretty much at about 750 millibars, maybe a little bit higher. But we have our winds. We don't have much vertical wind shear throughout most of the boundary layer, although most of the winds here are out of the northwest, so this is above that. This is north of that area of convergence that I showed you on the SBC meso analysis. Uh, so with winds there, and now taking a look at the winds in Syracuse, they're a lot different. A lot less shear in the boundary layer. We have towards the surface, especially a little bit of a southerly component. Winds out of the west-southwest, so this is even proving the point further that there's that zone of convergence along the south end of the lake. So now moving back to LO1, we're going to look at the 18Z NAM sounding right here. And overnight, as you see, we have that dendritic growth zone, staying about, what's it here, about 790 millibars to about 880, so about roughly a 90 to 100 millibar thick dendritic growth zone for a good portion of the night. And moving into later in the night, this is 2 a.m. Winds shear. The wind shear is a lot decreasing a lot in the boundary area. Strong negative omega. A nice unstable lapse rate with about that, that 13 or so degrees Celsius difference between the surface and 850 millibars. And we are looking at LakeEffect snow overnight tonight. That is without a doubt, in my opinion. Looking at Syracuse at the winds just to make sure that zone of convergence is not going to be, deteriorating. This is Wednesday at 11 p.m. So as we progress through the night, it looks like soundings have that zone of convergence, have the winds out of the southwest for part of the night. Band looks like it could fluctuate, but the band looks like it'll generally stay around the same area, with maybe a few blips that it'll move southward. But generally, the profile for LakeEffect snow tonight is looking really good. You have that deep dendritic growth zone, capping stable layers, at least 750 millibars, strong negative omega, unstable lapse rate, just, low vertical wind shear. So we could see quite a bit of LakeEffect snow tonight. Looking at the 4-kilometer high-res NAM, and let's see, current hour would be 1Z. And then looking at the radar at this time, one thing I like to do is I do like to look at the radar to make sure that the models are having a good handle on the current situation. So the 4-kilometer high-res NAM actually, it could be better, but it's not terrible compared to how I've seen it before. Obviously not as good as the 3-kilometer HER. The HER usually has a better handle on the situation, but overnight tonight, the 4-kilometer high-res NAM does have the band shift southward a little bit, but LakeEffect snow is still happening over Oswego according to the NAM, but the HER kind of has the bands just shift southward and stay mostly to the south as the flow becomes more out of the northwest. I have a tendency to favor the HER over the NAM because the HER usually does have a better handle on the situation, but as you go further out in time, its quality deteriorates. But I think the bands should most likely be in the Oswego area and points south. So now taking a quick look at your 850 millibar temperatures and winds. Very strong cold air advection, and here's the precursor, although this is as far as I can go out with the 4K NAM, but this is the precursor of that second trough. Very cold 850 millibar temperatures will advect into the region. Temperatures, according to the 4K NAM, are going to get very cold. As you see, we have minus 20s and below to our north and west. Now, I don't think we're going to get that cold. Maybe areas like Saranac Lake, It could be possible, but in Oswego City and points like Syracuse, I doubt it. Uh, Before I wrap things up here, the National Weather Service has issued a lake effect snow warning for Oswego, Oneida, Madison, Onondaga, Northern Cayuga, Wayne counties. And also, there's lake effect that's being addressed and warned and advised from the National Weather Service downwind of Lake Erie. So, just taking a quick look at their lake effect snow warning. So, lake effect snow warning remains in effect until 4 a.m. Eastern Standard Time Friday. Locations: Wayne, Northern Cayuga, Oswego, Onondaga, areas. I'm not going to go into their accumulations, although I think we may be having a little bit more in some of the most persistent bands, especially areas that will have a little bit of orographic effects inland where the land starts to slope up a little bit. But usually I would say, you know, in Oswego City here, I'm thinking maybe like 10 to 14 inches or so plus. But we shall see. So, yeah, I don't advise travel. If you're on the roads, stay off the roads because it's not looking pretty. Again, National Weather Service has widespread lake effect snow warnings and advisories throughout much of the central and western New York region. I am weather forecaster Eric Drewitz signing off. Thank you all for watching and have a great evening.